can wait for maybe 2-3 minutes after 10, so that we have some people like students with disabilities who will be logging in. And I spoken to the keynote address speaker, and he said he will join us. I will just follow up on his cell phone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mbuba. You let us know as to when to start. Whenever we're ready, you'll give me a signal so that we could start with our program.
I will, Dr. Zaga. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Wamkua, wamtumutsu. No, no.
May I request colleagues?
Hello, Bojaga.
Oh, Dr. Mbua.
Okay, I think we can start now.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning once again, colleagues. It's again the time of the year when, as the university, we come together to celebrate the Disability Day. And it is also worth indicating that this year, for the second time, we are celebrating this day under difficult circumstances when we cannot meet physically due to the challenges posed by COVID-19. And the theme for this year is access is a key to academic success. And I think it's also important to indicate that Dr. Mbua has informed me that our keynote speaker from the University of Johannesburg, Professor Daniel Mashau, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, it's still busy at the moment. He's still participating in another meeting, and he will join us as we are proceeding with our program. And on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity and request the Disability Unit Library Liaison Officer, Mr. Ashutamisi Gadisi, to welcome us. Mr. Gadisi, over to
you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all colleagues who managed to join the meeting. It is really a good day indeed, as alluded by the program director. Feel welcome, colleagues. Participate where necessary. And I would like to say to all of you, you are welcome. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gadisi, for the welcome remarks. Although I have already indicated why we are gathered this morning, we have made a provision in the program for the head of Disability Unit, Dr. Chifiwa Mbua, to share with us the purpose of this event. So on this note, I would like to invite Dr. Mbua to share with us the purpose of the event. Dr. Mbua, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaga, for affording me this opportunity. And I would like firstly to acknowledge and appreciate the presence of the VC and Principal, Dr. Bernard Tambeleni, DVC academic, Professor Crawford, and as indicated on the invite that Dr. Martin, DVC Operations, will also join us. And I will also acknowledge in absentia, before he joins us, the presence of Professor Daniel Mashau, the Executive Dean at UJ, and all the directors of our institutions, academics, staff, academic and administration staff, and students. And I'm so grateful today to allude to the purpose of today's gathering. This Indaba term is coming from the Xhosa and the Zulu. When the king called the people to brainstorm on the business of their interest. Now we are gathered here today as UNIVEN to talk about our common business. And our common business is to provide for students with disabilities. As the theme says that access is the key to academic success. As the university, we are informed by the policy and legislative framework that says, for example, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa on section number 29(1), which says everyone has the right, A, to basic education, B, to adult basic education, and C, also for further education. And we are here in higher education or further education, which the state is reasonably providing accessibility. In other words, we are here because of the mandate from the Constitution, and also the employment equity also spells out that we must not practice unfair discrimination. We have our recent National Plan for Higher Education, which was published in 2000, where they say we are obliged to increase access for learners with special need or for persons with disabilities. Now, as the university, we have planned in place to provide access for persons with disabilities. Now, our aim also is strived by making to raise awareness on the disability and deepens our understanding on the issues such as access and academic success. We know that if we allow people to access our institution without support, as spelled out by white paper number 6 on education and training, we cannot achieve the goal. The goal of higher education is for students who enter, and those students must succeed in their academic work. In that, we have planned that today we assemble all people from different disciplines. That's why we have a person by the name of Professor Dania from UJ, who is coming in the School of Engineering. We want to hear from him what is it that we can understand in terms of teaching and learning of students with disabilities, in terms of also in line with Fourth Industrial Revolution. And under this theme, we are going to look at the access to teaching and learning, environmental access, in other words, physical access, whether our environment is user-friendly for students with various disabilities, those who use cane and those who use wheelchair. We are also going to look at the financial access. Are our students with disabilities having it easy to access finance for their academic? Now, we cannot talk of access as the key to academic success without talking about reasonable accommodation. As the university, we cannot say we are there yet, but we are striving for perfection by providing reasonable accommodation to our students with disabilities and even to the employees with disabilities. By reasonable accommodation, colleagues, we are just saying that we will make some adjustment in the system to accommodate or to make fair the same system for an individual based on their proven need. In this instance, our students with disabilities will need accommodation in terms of writing test and exam. We provide extra time for them so that those who without limbs, those who are having hands that are not functional enough, they can have extra time so that they can finish whatever they are writing on time and also to compete with their non-disabled counterpart students. Also, by reasonable accommodation, we are also providing online courses. From the e-learning desk, we think that our students with disabilities are getting online courses where they can use the platforms for learning, for their learning. And we also give them alternate testing environment. Colleagues, we know our history, where we are coming from. Our built environment is not that user-friendly. And with that in mind, before we can modify or adjust all the buildings to be accessible, we need to provide for all alternative test environment, meaning that an environment or a building that is accessible by all, whether you are of long structure or you are too tall, you are short structure, you can access the building with ease. And we also provide reasonable accommodation by providing learning materials in alternative formats. By this, we are saying, as the unit, we provide learning materials in Braille, electronic, and also in large print for those who need the learning materials. You know, anything can happen during the learning program. Some students' disabilities are progressive. The student can come here as a partially sighted, and in no time, the disability progressed into totally blind. Therefore, we provide reasonable accommodation by providing scribers who will write for that person when he's still recuperating on how to use other devices for writing. The sign language interpreter we also provide as a reasonable accommodation. If we have a sign language user, we provide sign language interpreter. The provision of assistive device. As the unit, to make access and success, we also provide assistive device to our students with disabilities. We research and recommend assistive devices relevant to can break the barrier that is created by the disability. We also advocate working with in collaboration with other departments within the university. We advocate for the existing environment to be accessible and user-friendly. You know, we can talk and talk until sunset, but disability, for them to succeed, we need to take a case by case, because for provision or making support for students with disabilities, it doesn't need one methodology. It's not a one-shoes-fit-all strategy that works in the provision of academic support for students with disability. Therefore, we treat them as individuals and we provide individual support according to their learning needs. On that note, Program Director, I would like to say that is the purpose of today, and we will urge our students to participate, people from different disciplines and schools and faculties. Help us to make this day a success by contributing to whatever topic will be brainstormed. And it's within us. For the students who can say, please participate. You always use the slogan, nothing about us without us. Here is the platform. Don't hit us. Let us engage in fruitful and meaningful discussion after all the presenter has presented. On that note, Program Director, Dr. Zaka, I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mbuva, for such a comprehensive outline of the purpose of this Indaba. Maybe without necessarily blowing our own trumpet, Dr. Mbuva, I think it's worth indicating that the University of Venda is one of the few institutions within the country that continues to provide the necessary support to our students with disabilities. And I think we need to applaud ourselves for that. And with regard to the attendance, I think it's also pleasing to note that the number of participants it's increasing. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Mbuva, for such a comprehensive explanation of the services that the unit continues to provide to our students. And in your presentation, Dr. Mbuva, you made it clear that we have in our midst the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Venda, Dr. Bernard Tambeleni. And colleagues, I am now privileged to request our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Dr. Tambeleni, to share with us his address. Dr. Tambeleni, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaga. Thank you for the opportunity to talk as we gather today for this very important event in the life of the University of Venda. Yes, indeed, as alluded to by Dr. Mbuva, the way in which the university attends to the issues relating to disability speaks well of the university itself. So I need to thank you for that brief introduction. Program Director and also Professor Daniel Mashau, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment from the University of Johannesburg, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning, Professor Crawford, the HOD for Disability Unit, Dr. Mbuba, Mr. Hanyani Maswanganyi, the chairperson of the DSC, and all students and staff that are part of this session today. Let me greet you. The Integrated National Disability Strategy white paper that was published in 1997 correctly opined that the yardstick for which a measure to any, let me repeat again my sentence, the Integrated National Disability Strategy white paper that was published in 1997 correctly opined that the yardstick by which to measure a society's respect for human rights, to evaluate the level of, to measure the society's human rights, to evaluate the level of its maturity and its generosity of spirit, is by looking at the status that it accords to those members of society who are most vulnerable, the disabled people, the senior citizens, and its children. It is further stated that in the white paper, the same white paper, that the concept of caring society is strengthened and deepened when we recognize that the disabled people enjoy the same rights as we do, and that we have a responsibility towards the promotion of their quality of life. According to the Statistics SA, for those of you who follow Statistics SA, the national disability prevalence rate in South Africa is about 7.5%, and that the disability is much more prevalent amongst the females compared to males. And this is a feature also that we do share much more in our space. In the education sector, the term access typically refers to the ways in which educational institutions and policymakers ensure that students have equal access and equitable opportunity to take full advantage of their education. And increasing access generally requires institutions of higher learning to provide additional services or remove any actual or potential barriers that might prevent some students from equitable participation in certain courses that they chose. Our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which is a cornerstone for our democracy, enshrines the rights of all people in the country and affirms the democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. However, factors such as race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability status, family income may also contribute to certain students having less access to educational opportunities than other students. And we have already witnessed that in our space. For the University of Venda, we normally say all students who meet the admission criteria are accepted in their preferred programs without any discrimination, whether based on their disability status or based in terms of their affordability, and they are making some strides in terms of us being accommodating. As part of widening access to students with disabilities, the University of Venda has established what we call the Disabled Student Unit to offer a targeted academic support to students with various disabilities. And for those of you who might be in campus, you might see there's also some work that is going on to ensure that that structure get to be refurbed in a way that it becomes accommodative and become enlarged to accommodate a number of students that we do have at the University of Venda. And we want to thank so much the department for providing us with funding so that we are able to really make sure that we improve these facilities. So we thank the department for such funding. And this disabled student unit is staffed with staff, in our view, who are experts in their field and also with diverse qualification and backgrounds. And the reason is that they become much more hands-on in assisting our students. And their sole mandate is to provide the academic support and also to ensure that all these assistive devices that have been provided, that students are able to use these much more with assistance that they require. And it is our view that, and I believe that, one size fits all strategies cannot work for students living with disabilities. And this is the point also that has been referenced by Dr. Mbuba, that we have to have some sort of, a tailor-made solution to each and every student, because, you've got variety in terms of these disabilities. So the one-size-fits-all approach cannot really work when you have to deal with students with disabilities. And we normally say that, in doing that, we don't seem to be saying we are doing anybody a favor. And this is what we must do as a university. And this is what we must do as an institution of higher learning, to provide access to everybody that require to study with us. I'm also pleased as I stand here today that, we've made some inroads in terms of providing, facilities and, devices to ensure that, students with disabilities are able to learn. Just to note again that, the first batch of our assistive devices were handed over to 33 NSFAS funded students with disabilities. This was done, early in the year in March, and we are quite happy about that. We're quite happy about that we're able to reach those numbers of students. And that also the second batch of our assistive devices were handed over to 64 NSFAS funded students that are living with disabilities. And this was just handed over yesterday on the 8th of September, 2021. And we're quite pleased about this collaboration in working together with NSFAS, because we can only do much more if we work together. And in this regard, we want to thank the team in the student support, who are also making sure that we're able to engage with NSFAS for these facilities to be able to be given to our students. So we're quite happy about that. The university also caters for students with challenges in terms of transportation. Now, this is something that I normally say when I talk to people, much more those that are living with disabilities, that if you look in terms of our general transportation mode in the country, be that taxis or buses, they are not much more made to accommodate those that are living with disabilities. And we cannot just fold our arms much more and say, this is how the county is, this is how we live. We've made some inroads in the university, and we were quite very happy when we made an application to the department. We're given funding, wherein we were able to procure a bus, and that was adapted to make sure that it becomes user-friendly for all those students that are disabled, those that use wheelchairs. So we want to thank the department again for making sure that we had that state-of-the-art bus that we do have in our domain. So we thank the department also for that funding. We cannot also talk about access and not looking in terms of the student with a disability in terms of succeeding academically. Because it's not a matter of accommodation, it's a matter of that you're accommodated, but you must succeed in what you do. And that student success, in our view, includes not only the strong retention and the degree completion, but also the access to high quality learning environment. Hence, the point I said earlier that we're also now refurbishing the DSU building to make sure that it becomes a good high quality learning environment for our students so that they are not hampered. As I conclude, let me say that the physical environment sends a powerful non-verbal messages regarding the campus climate. So you only have to look at the campus itself to measure whether we are ready in terms of what we do. And I do know sometimes I took a walk with students, those that are living with disabilities, just to experience exactly what they experience on a daily basis, And we have committed ourselves to ensure that in the campus environment should be changed so that it begin to really send a message that speaks to what we want to see as we move forward as a campus that is caring. So the physical environment, in our view, send a very powerful message in terms of, the climate that we want to create for our students. And moreover, the way a university responds to accessibility issues can communicate a message of tolerance rather than embracing difference or diversity. So it's about to embrace these differences and diversity. It's not about tolerance. And this is the point that we said earlier when we met, I think it was last year with, a year before last year, with students living with disabilities. As I conclude, let me wish you a very good success workshop and Indaba. Of course, as it was mentioned earlier by Dr. Mbuba, this is quite a very important event in the life of the University of Venda. And as we strive to improve, we welcome all your thoughts, all your opinion on how we can able to better space, because we believe that you can also tailor-make the solutions if we are able to work together and able to collaborate and share our opinion. So we are open to your suggestion, and we want to wish you the success on this day today as we host this disability Indaba. Let me thank you so much for listening. Over to you, Director Dr. Zaga.
Thank you so much, VC, for the wonderful address. And I have noticed that our keynote address or keynote speaker has already joined us. So I would once again invite Dr. Mbuba to come back to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Mbuba, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaga, Program Director. I would like to introduce Professor Daniel Mashau to the Indaba, who is going to be our keynote address speaker. Professor Daniel Mashau is the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment at the University of Johannesburg, UJ. The faculty is the largest engineering faculty in the country, offering both engineering technology and engineering science. It has over 10,000 students and is rated #1 in Africa in chemical engineering technology, amongst others. The University of Johannesburg intends to lead in the 4th Industrial Revolution and has incorporated this in its research-led teaching and research activities. Institutes of Intelligent Systems, Center for Ecological Intelligence, and other data science research is performed by faculty, meaning Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment. Professor Mashau did his doctoral studies in artificial intelligence and hidden Markov models. He continues to work with students on this area of research. He previously worked at the State Information Technology Agency, SITA, working on 4th Industrial Revolution business model that can be applied on public services. Current research is looking at improving recognition using little data. With these words, I'm welcoming you, Professor Mashau, on the podium. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the welcome, and thank you very much for the colleagues setting up this session. I really believe that these kind of sessions are needed and are very important to enable us to make progress as we gather together on these kind of meetings and spend time to apply our minds. Given the technologies that we have a better opportunity of finding solutions. As I have been introduced, my name is Daniel Mashau. I have the unfortunate surname of Mashau, which is my family surname. And when I meet many people, they assume I would know my home language of Venda, which I don't, and because I grew up in Edridgeville. But I'm always very excited to learn more about where my family comes from and the work that they have done. We are supposedly, very close to the royal family, and my great-grandfather apparently ran away at some point to land here in Gauteng. But so it's myself. I joined UJ in 2018, as it has been explained, from the state IT agency. Before joining UJ, I was at University of Cape Town as an associate professor in electrical engineering. And before then, I had been in the state. And I have worked on many projects around speech technology. My PhD was on using hidden Markov models to do speech recognition. And I have continued to work in a technology area. And as it has been said, I'm now at University of Johannesburg. And part of the attraction to come to the University of Johannesburg was the opportunity to work on the fourth industrial revolution. So I'll be sharing with you some ideas on what it means to me and what I think we can do with the fourth industrial revolution. And I believe that there is a lot more that needs to be done. There's a big role for research, but this is a tool we have now, and it's a special tool in a sense that we can all be involved. It's not we are not talking about a technology or a revolution that is only available to other people elsewhere, but it's a technology that we also have an opportunity to get into. So thank you for the honor, VC and other members of staff, for the honor that you have given me to come and make a presentation. I was telling Dr. Mbuva that there is also another project that we are working on that we wanted to work with University of Venda, but we will be introducing, we will be discussing it later. So for now, I'm just going to be presenting a presentation that I've made that I'll make available to anyone to look at, and I'll also be glad to discuss much of what is in that presentation. So please allow me now, all protocol observed, to move into the presentation. I've named it 4IR and access to education and opportunities. Yeah, thank you. So as one looks at this area of 4IR, I think sometimes we really need to go back to the definition of it. Charles Schwab spoke about it in 2013. We are in 2021 now, but he talked about it as somebody looking at on a mountain, looking at what is to come. And I read verbatim, it says, we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, this transformation will be unlike anything human has experienced before. We do not yet know just how it will unfold, but one thing is clear: the response to it must be integrated, comprehensive, involving all stakeholders of the global polity, from the public and private sectors to academia and civil society. Now, when we look at this fourth industrial revolution, yes, we are inspired by how big it is. We don't know. We are just at the beginning of this revolution. It's also very interesting for me because usually people are able to talk about things in the past, that we have been through something, but it so much looks like we are entering this with our eyes open, we are looking at what is this thing going to do. We know that we don't know everything, but there is a lot that we have seen so far. There have been other revolutions. I particularly like the water and sewage infrastructure revolution. That kind of revolution is the one that has allowed us as a human species to move from very small numbers to today, where we are 8 billion, on planet Earth. And that revolution of the infrastructure allows us to live anywhere, to build different kinds of places, not to be forced to live next to rivers, not to be forced to get water and cleanliness from limited spaces. But because of that revolution, we are where we are as a human species. So evidently, even with the fourth industrial revolution, we expect a lot more. We expect a lot more changes. We expect a lot more things to happen. What is also different with this revolution is the speed and the rate of change. We can all ascertain to, if we were to look at maybe 2007, 2007, we didn't have a smartphone. Today, probably everyone has a smartphone with them, and that makes us aware that we are really undergoing a change. Still remember, I'm born and bred in Ettridgeville, Pretoria. I still remember when you had to take 6 months to get a phone installed, applying to Telkom. Now, today, you don't even need to do that. You just go to the store, buy a phone. So we are able to see that there is something that is happening, that is changing in our lifetime, and the speed of that change is great. The impact on our lives, the relationships that we form now are impacted by this revolution. Now, in the previous revolutions, like the first, second, and third, we'd notice that one of the big things that would be happening in that revolution would be that the revolution is external to you. But in this case here of the fourth industrial revolution, it's really impacting us and it's part of us. In this slide here, I just wanted to show, changes that have taken place within 20 years. Within 20 years, we have now these companies that are really the biggest companies. The world's largest taxi company owns no vehicle, Uber, and that just shows you about 20 years ago. If you were to ask anybody else, can you run a business, a taxi company without having taxis? Everybody would have told you it's not possible. You do need to buy a taxi. And by the way, when I was at the state IT agency at SETA, part of our interest were these kind of things, with these kinds of innovative business models, where you are able to provide services without owning the infrastructure. And a lot of these models have shows you that you look at Airbnb, the largest accommodation provider, but actually owns no real estate, and so on and so forth. So these models have come about because of the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution has introduced new entities, and that we are able to now take advantage of. Now, what is the fourth industrial revolution? It's a fusion of technologies that produces new technologies and business models and values. I've already talked a little bit about the business models that are introduced by the fourth industrial revolution, but there are new technologies that are introduced as well. The interesting thing is that with the fourth industrial revolution, these technologies are not necessarily new. Some of them have been there for many, many years. It's just now that they have acquired sort of a new life. If you look at what is called a hype cycle, you'd know that all technologies tends to have a point when they are hyped, and everyone says, wow, this technology is going to solve everything. It's going to do this. And then after some time, reality hits, and we get to a point where we realized that no, it's not going to do that. For example, if you look at TV, when TV started, it was going to, everybody expected it to make such big changes that there will be there'll be a new world where we won't need teachers. You just need to have only one math teacher, who can teach everyone, because everybody will have access to what this person is teaching, and they'll be able to do it on their TVs. So you could get the best teacher to teach, and how this will revolutionize the world. But reality hits, and we realize, teaching, you do need to have some interaction with the people who are to be taught, so you can't really do it that long distance throughout the whole world, having only one teacher. So the technologies undergo a hype cycle where they seem to be like things that are going to solve everything, and then reality hits in, and we realize, no, there are things they cannot really do. They can do some things, and most of all the 4IR technologies are not new. They have been there before. They have probably gone through their life cycles, and then their life cycles are operating at some steady state. But what the 4IR does is it fuses these technologies into newer technologies that behave differently and add a new value. And in so doing, they also introduce new business models and introduce new values. I'll briefly just go through that so that what I'm saying does make a little bit of sense. For example, blockchain. Blockchain is one of the newer technologies that we have. I'm sure many people, some people here might follow Bitcoin to see what is a Bitcoin value to the US dollar is. And I still remember when I was playing with this at SITA, when I was still at SITA, we were looking at that. And one Bitcoin was about 100,000 rand, and I was thinking, wow, taking 100,000 rand to buy one Bitcoin. Today, I think I checked it yesterday, it was about 800,000. So had I had enough faith and vision and bought my Bitcoin while I was in 2018, when I was at SITA, I would be having almost R1 million today. But I didn't do that. So Bitcoin is based on what is called blockchain technology. Now, what I'm trying to show in this case here is to show you that the basic technologies that underline blockchain are not new. There are things like pretty good privacy, which is a method that we were using in 1991 when I was still studying at Brown University. We used it to to protect your messages that you send to other people. You can study more about it on Wikipedia. And then the other technology that is used is BitTorrent technology. So combining these two technologies, PGP and BitTorrent, you are able to end up with what is equivalent, the digital equivalent of trust. Now you are able to establish trust between two people, the trust that can be mathematically proven to be valid. And because of that trust, we now have things such as a blockchain, and we still expect a lot more from that technology. I mean, it's working now with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on and so forth. And I see that there's also a push for e-rand, electronic rand. There's a push for these things, but these are things that were there before, just that we didn't combine them, that we use them for different things. By the way, the BitTorrent file transfer is what makes it impossible to stop things like WikiLeaks, because this data is not stored on one computer or at somebody else's computer. Is stored throughout the internet. Bits and pieces can be accessed from everywhere, and that makes it very difficult, because you need to destroy all computers to be able to destroy the network. So these technologies are producing digital trust, and this digital trust It's going to revolutionize government. It's going to revolutionize how we do things, our licenses, how we our title deeds of houses. There are already a lot of work that is going into that kind of work, but it's going to take time because we all need to sort of arrive at some equilibrium level where people can move on. But essentially, the point I'm trying to drive here is that the basic technologies, the foundational technologies have been there before. New values that are introduced by the fourth industrial revolution. It used to be like, if you are a monopoly, you must charge money, but we have monopolies now that we have to rethink our values. Can you be a monopoly even though you are offering your products free of charge, or what looks like free of charge? Can you be a monopoly if you're always losing money? Can you be a monopoly if you don't have profits? And so those new values are coming up. We're looking at technologies such as CRISPR technology that changes the DNA. Now, the difference between you and any other person on this world in terms of DNA is about 2%, just 2% difference between you and any other person. Now, when you start dealing with CRISPR now, and we can cure people, we can do that. But what happens once we start changing our DNA beyond 2%? Is that person still a human being? Yeah, what about when we start talking to animals? We understand them better, we understand how they think. Are we now going to have animal rights and so on and so forth? What about trees, plants and so on? So the fourth industrial revolution is going to lead us into that world that we have to answer these questions. We have to say something about them. Maybe we might talk about, if the change is not genetically carried through the germline, then you are not a human being, or you are a human being. So I think there's still a lot that is to come from the fourth industrial revolution. Briefly, just want to talk about looking at those technologies that we look at, and I just want to maybe spend some little bit of time on trying to talk about tools that we can create. So here I've listed 4 technologies. I've listed digital technologies. I've looked at AI, blockchains, mobility, virtual reality, augmented reality, and then also looked at the biological technologies, DNA, CRISPR, and all the things that it will mean, for us as a human species. There's also physical technologies, nanomaterials. For example, at UJ, we have the cleanest room to create nanomaterials that we will be launching this year. But we are trying to create materials at a nano level, at an atomic level. Now, we have theories of how those materials should behave, but the research is going to be, do they really practically behave the way we have intended, or the way we think they should behave? So it's going to be quite an interesting area of basic research. But there's a lot of things. There's new materials that are being built, very light, tough materials, materials that change, materials that detects what is happening, your sweat levels, and so on and so forth. And then there's also energy and environment technologies. We do know about them: clean energy, smart grids, and so on. So these technologies, when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, we're saying that it's actually bringing some of these technologies together, combining them to create new cyber technologies, to create new business models, to create new values. Now, I am not an expert on disability, so I did look at some of the definitions of what is the definition of this, and I use the CDC's definition, which talks about any condition of the body or mind that makes it more difficult for the person to do certain activities and interact with the world around them. And it listed, I've copied them verbatim, their vision, movement, thinking, remembering, learning, communicating, hearing, mental health, and social relationships, and I think there were 2 others. But it's now at a point when we ask ourselves, what does the 4th industrial revolution brings to these things? And I think there are 2 ways of looking at it. One is looking at this from the tools perspective. Can you create something? Can you create a thing to help with vision? Can you create a thing to help with movement? Can you create something to help with thinking? But there's also another way of looking at it. If you go back and say, instead of staying in the digital, can I stay in the biological one? And there's a lot of work there, very interesting work, people looking at changing the gene sequences, curing people, and so on, where now you're applying that space. There's also work in the physical space, creating instead of these big materials that sometimes they would put on someone's hand and so on. Can we create materials that do not have to be that big, that can be almost invisible, and so on and so forth. So each area of the technologies offers an opportunity of providing a tool that can be used. And I think that is very important for me to say, what is lacking is maybe our research, maybe what is lacking is our application of these things, but it's not the fact that we do not have the tools. If you look at the previous industrial revolutions, they were always outside, our bodies. They were always outside us. But now, with the 4th industrial revolution, we are part of it, So if I want my finger to be faster, if I want my eyes to see further, I can do it. We can do it now, We can create those special glasses that do some things, and I think that is also what is unique about the 4th industrial revolution, that it interacts with us. We spoke earlier around the issue of CRISPR, changing ourselves, our DNA. If my problem with my eyes is because of my DNA, maybe can I put in a new DNA? Can I change how my eyes see, and so on? And I think those options are there. Those options are there. And if we look at the issue of solutions to access education and opportunities, the area of artificial intelligence, I can imagine research groups working specifically on that issue in artificial intelligence, looking at solving problems such as the method of access. The information might be visual, but I might want to get it in terms of speech. The information might be speech, but I might want to have a tactile feel of it, and so on and so forth. So artificial intelligence is definitely one tool that will allow us to create solutions that are different. But again, it's going to require research. It's going to require people to focus on it. But it's available, and it's not like one will feel that I have to be maybe a rocket scientist to think about it, about what solution it can bring. It's obvious that yes, there is more things we need to understand because of the complexity of the world, but there are possible solutions. Data science is one area where, understanding the world better, creating data models, and one issue sometimes people want to know which one is the biggest technology, which one is really the greatest technology, and all of them are, all of them are. It just depends on where you're using it for, what you are using it for, and where you are applying it. Artificial intelligence is great. There are a lot of applications for it. Similarly, data science, it's very powerful, helping us understand and see what is happening. We're going to understand ourselves better as human beings based on data science, on being able to gather information on how we do blockchains. Talked about it a little bit earlier, but it really has a lot of solutions. One of the solutions that the universities are looking at is issues of microcredits, where you can study from any university and get credits and be able to hopefully in the future have a flexible degrees. We are always inundated with Coursera and other people looking to work with us and creating this kind of things. And they represent opportunities, but they represent risks. But for the users, there's probably a lot more opportunities. Being in South Africa and studying at MIT and getting your qualifications and having your qualifications certified using blockchains and so on. So all those are really opportunities, and there are opportunities both ways. And maybe there's one slide where I'll talk about that. Virtual reality and augmented reality, again, it gives us opportunities, because sometimes we may be talking about disability in terms of movement, but in a world that is a virtual reality, the world that is augmented reality, how much of that is a hindrance? How much of that is a hindrance or should be regarded as a limitation that cannot be overcome? And I think in a lot of cases here, we will discover that technology is giving us a chance that we can overcome many of the so-called, or whatever might look like, hindrances. What might look like hindrances. I just wanted to say, I think if I had to give one statement on what I'm trying to say, it would be that, a smartphone or laptop is really one of the best tools that we have. I have a friend, he calls a smartphone a modern magic wand. He says, with this magic wand, you can summon miracles and services, food, taxis, cleaning. You can do audio reading and so on. So the opportunities of participation and contributions are indeed limitless. Because we have the tools, and I showed here one website called Fiverr. Fiverr allows you can go to it. That's also the reason why I put it there. You can go to it. You can ask them to do a presentation for you. You can bid for a presentation. You are going to deliver a speech somewhere. You can get people to do that for you. You can do almost anything. And the person who's doing it on the other side, all you know about them is the ratings. Is the ratings they've received and the cost. Some things they cost R5. Maybe to write a funeral speech, to cost you R5 for you and so on, or to make a presentation for your company and so on. But you don't really know anything about those other people other than the ratings that you have. It's the same concept, if you might say, as Uber and so on. We don't use it that way, but the idea of Uber is after you have gone through the ride, you will rate the driver, and the driver will also rate you. The same idea as Airbnb. Most of us will never allow strangers, even if they come with a surname of Mashao, wanting to come and sleep at your place. You'll be saying, do I really know you? Where do you come from? Who are you? But with Airbnb, you don't ask those questions. You don't ask those questions when you have opened your house for Airbnb. You allow me to come in. Because why? Because you virtually know me. You know where I have been before, what places I've visited. The use of the app makes it makes me known to you in some sense, and so on and so forth. So similarly with this Fiverr as well, you can provide services. You might be stuck at home. And not being able to do anything. But hey, people on the other side can receive services from you. You might be able to teach somebody math and so on. So if you're looking at opportunities and so on, they are great. Yes, they come through this medium, but they are there. The other technologies that I really like very much, I've not been able to do as much research on them as I would like to, but they're very powerful, hearables. I think you might have seen them. They cost from as little as 200 Rand on Take a Lot and so on, but and most people just use them to listen to music or listen to their cell phones, but they can be used for a lot of things. They can be, and there are applications. I know that the US Army uses them to, if they are in an area where they don't understand the language that people are saying, but they want to pick up on the keywords when people talk. So if I have this and I come to an area where they speak a different language, it will let me know when they mention keywords that I need to hear, or maybe greetings and so on, and it will be translating those things to me. Again, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done here. There's still a lot of work. People are looking at automatic translations, where you meet somebody and he speaks a different language, and then you can make it do an automatic translation. Yeah. So those are. I mean, I think the potentials are there. The work is it's there, and it's not impossible, and we can. Yeah, we can create those things. I just wanted to talk more about maybe with the tools and talk about things like Google Glass, in terms of vision, translation of that, watches now. At some point, I was really convinced that my Apple Watch was definitely going to replace my cell phone, given that you can call with it, you can command it, you can give it instructions, you can do that. I'm not so sure anymore, but it's a very interesting technology. It can measure a lot about your vitals and help you with information. Rings as well are coming into play, and so on. We spoke a little bit about CRISPR and the potential of what it can do, what can be done. In places like ours where we have issues with poaching, you might be able to make cows to produce rhino horns and so on. So I think it's the ability of the fourth IR to really solve specific problems is only limited by our focus. If we decide to focus on something specifically, we can do that. Here's a story of this guy who made kits who cannot catch HIV virus, which is very interesting. And unfortunately, he was arrested, and because what he did, unfortunately, it's something that is going to affect the human race forever. It's not like a temporary thing. If you do genetic research on me, I already have my kids, I'm not planning on doing anything, then it's fine because it will end up with me. But if you do it on children, and your genetic modification is really going to be in the population forever, and I think that is we can all agree that's very dangerous, because what we don't fully know what is happening there, but these things are not impossible. Obviously there's a lot of good work on using it to help with some of these disabilities, to reduce them, to eliminate them when we know where they come from and so on, and what we can do. But it's a scary world out there, and it's the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so in conclusion, without taking too much time, I just wanted to say, yeah, the 4IR offers exciting opportunities to change and enhance ourselves. I can imagine some of us will want to have some things in our ears, to have microwave listening, so I can listen to my neighbor gossiping about me here across the other wall, superhuman strength and survival in inhospitable areas. When we go to Mars and other places, we'll need to do that. The big need is going to be research and involvement, and that will allow us to solve a lot of these problems. I do have some other slides I was presenting about education in the fourth industrial revolution. I was just saying some of these virtual classes, blockchains, microcredits, I've spoken a little bit about that, mentoring, coaching, you know, new Google universities and services that one can offer without counting on one's limitation. This is some of the work that we're doing at UJ, where we're teaching students about mining and putting them in mines. And they're doing it virtually. They're doing it on virtually. They're able to move terrains and so on. And those are some of the tools that you know, the 4IR is offering us, blasting walls, and some of us would like to fix our own cars. You know, the technology is there already. I'm not so sure, but it's there. I'm not so sure how much people will want to go through it, but you'll be able to fix your own car without knowing anything, just using those glasses and using augmented reality. Yeah, okay. No, thank you very much. I just wanted to, those are the ideas I just wanted to share with you, and I hope that they are stimulating enough to enable you to, you know, think about what can we do, what is available for us, that we are the ones who can solve these problems, especially if we focus on the problem. So thank you very much, Dr. Mbavu, and I will stay a little while, just maybe if there are any questions or things to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Daniel Mashao. This presentation has indeed been thought-provoking, and you have indeed shared with us a lot of possibilities for doing things differently. And I'm sure colleagues will agree with me that as the investor of Venda, it is evident that we cannot be left behind without taking advantage of utilization of fourth industrial revolution to solve specific problems that we are confronted with. Once again, thank you so much, Prof. And I'll now open the floor for discussion. And I would like to request colleagues to raise your hands if you want to make a comment or clarity-seeking question. And please introduce yourself before you could present your question or a comment. So the floor is now open, colleagues. I see Dr. Mbuva's hand is up.
Thank you, Dr. Zaga. Mine is a comment. I'm grateful to know, Prof. Mashao, that our endeavor in supporting students with disabilities, it needs more of the knowledge of fourth industrial revolution and also the artificial intelligence. You have really opened our mind in terms of looking outside the box. Apart from supporting our students with disabilities, we must really incorporate fourth industrial revolution and use the numbers to interpret whatever we are doing on our students as part of the research. And I thank you for the really, as mentioned earlier by Dr. Zaka, thought-provoking presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mbuva. I see the hand of our DVC Teaching and Learning, Professor Crawford.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zaga. Professor Mashau mentioned the possibility of some collaborative project with UNIVEN. I suppose these are early days, yes, but is it possible, Prof, to shed some more light on this potential collaboration?
Yeah, no problem at all. There is Equasi Foundation. They want to look at how to market Toyando and as a central point somewhere enough, closer to Zimbabwe and other places. But what they want to look at is some of the research that they have done in Alexander Township and other places. So they just want to bring that model. We will be working with some colleagues. We have not fully identified the colleagues, but we will be working with some of the colleagues we believe at UNIVEN as well to look at some of the projects. I can give you an example. For example, there's a village in Kwakwani. Some of you might know where it is that we as University of Johannesburg want to turn it into a fourth industrial revolution smart village. So what we have done in that village, we have in collaboration with other people there, we have used solar. We make them, for example, they have a baking company now, bread baking company that works every day and is able to do it, and it's using some of these elements of communication and so on. So it's part of the kind of a CSI kind of operating. But the idea with this one for UNIVEN will be we will set up some projects to do together and measure the results of the effectiveness. It's not the only project. We will definitely welcome more things. We will welcome more participation with the university. Part of we have a big, for example, relationships with Harvard University in terms of their teaching materials and so on, and we'd like to partner with you in ways of extending that model of partnership that we have, and seeing how do we do it in a rural area? How do we progress people faster, or maybe not necessarily progressing them, but acknowledging our uniqueness in the place where we are. And because there's a lot of advantages, a lot of things that people in the first world will never be able to understand or be able to do, but we and only us, because of where we are, have an opportunity to do that. So I guess it's an issue of, it's a call for just collaboration on many issues. In our work on the fourth industrial revolution, it's very clear that this is not an engineering thing, it's not a science thing, it's really a life thing. And because of that, we do need many partners, people who want to look at things differently. We need to collaborate and create something. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Professors Mashau and Professor Crawford. Any other comments, questions, colleagues? I'm sure we also have students in our midst, and I think it would be good to also get some comments or questions from our students. Okay, it appears, Debbie Mukela, you can go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Tabia. I'm making a comment based on what Mr. Mashau said. Yes, it is true they are working with Kwakwani village. And then I'm also a student, a PhD student, whereby I'm also having a project working at that. I will be working at Kwakwani as well. He mentioned the bakery. Yes, I'll be using the bakery since I have to bake the bread using that bakery. So we are working in collaboration with that bakery. They are using solar, and it's really helping the community with the storage, and then we are happy that the village will be turned into a smart village. Thank you. That was only the comment, just to, also to indicate that University of Venda is also taking part. We are working with the village as well. And then, yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And Professor Mashao, it's so pleasing to note that our students are also participating in your projects. We are grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you very much as well. I think, you know, as academics people, I think our people want to know what's the use of all of these things going to universities and so on. And when we bring solutions home, when we make them relevant, I think they can also appreciate that there is something to be gained from this work. And yes, and there is no there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. And she's right, Tabia is right about the issue of cold storage, which has solved a big problem for the community, but also the issue of requiring heat and communication issues. We have an interest from Econet in Zim because they also want to look at models of communications in rural areas. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we should really put our hands to continuing the work and being relevant to our people and making great products. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me check if there are further questions or comments from participants. Three, two, oh, Sana Matwandlel. Dr. Matwandlel, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to Professor Mashao, and thank you for the presentation.
Good morning. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. There are negative attitudes and inequalities and difficulties in accessing quality education, which is digitally motivated and have negative influence how persons with disabilities interact with society in this present time. And I came across other studies that address such and recommendation of models for inclusion in this digital era. Therefore, I would like to find out from you how well these have related with digital technologies in this present time. And are there any templates that are provided for higher learning institutions on how well to prepare students with disabilities for the realities of the fourth industrial revolution? Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Dr. Matibandlela. I think what I really wanted to bring across is that we are the ones to make the solutions. Because the tools are there, they are in pieces there and there, but should we, you know, we can focus and make solutions. Now, yeah, okay, that's one thing I want to say. The other thing is the issue of you know, discrimination, the issue of that happens, and it happens, and sometimes it's lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. There's a need to educate more people about the things, so about these challenges. I still remember one of the bad mistakes I made when I was at UCT, looking at a system to look at the face of somebody who had a disability, and trying to create speech out of it, and I think it was very, very insensitive. So there's a lot of things that we really need to learn and teach one another, and the technology is neither positive nor negative. I think it's mostly useful, but again, you know, people might have to define what is useful, but it gives us options. That's what I would like to say, and we can use those options. I mean, yeah, we can use those options, and we can choose to use them for good and for edification, and we should do that. We should dedicate ourselves to doing that. But yeah, technology is not. It has a lot of other things, you know. I mean, we know about unemployment. We know about unemployment. We know about challenges with food. So the challenges are there, but if sufficient number of us pick up these problems and choose to do good with them, the good will arise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. And Dr. Matthew Andlila. I see Prof. Fermak.
Hi, good day, Professor. Interesting conversation or interesting lecture that you've given. I must just say there's one thing that's pretty obvious to me, and that's the cost of technology. I recently took my dad for a hearing apparatus, and I was surprised by how much these things cost. But the problem with 4G technology is that it puts it out of reach for a lot of people, and that I find frustrating. The solution that I can offer you off the wall is just to make all channels of accessibility available to students, and the challenge is how to manage that. How do we do that? Because our students are mostly, some of them are remote rural areas, and that makes the challenge even bigger. But nevertheless, thank you for your presentation. I would like to hear your comments. Thanks.
Yeah, Prof, I think you're very right. I mean, the cost of technology is, and it's not necessarily the cost. I think it's an opportunity that some of these people see. You're talking about right now about hearing aids. They are being disrupted by hearables, but hearables still have some weaknesses in that space. I was talking about some of these hearables costing only about 200 Rand, but there's still more work to be done to make them more usable. I agree with you. The cost is it's a killer. So we need to innovate as well in that cost space. The government is trying to bring in local manufacturing, local creation. I think we still have challenges. I was in Thailand about 2-3 years ago, and I was very surprised that they have 303, I don't forget the number, universities in a country of 80 million people. And I'm thinking about us in this country with 26, universities in a country of what, 60 million. So you can see that we still have a long way to go in order for us to provide solutions and to challenge some of these these hindrances. We really need to be working on increasing the levels of education in our country, increasing the level of innovation, increasing the level of collaboration. Instead of we tend to see each other as maybe sometimes competitors, and we really don't have that space. 26 universities should not be. We should be trying to learn from each other as much as we can. University of Johannesburg, as we said in the introduction, intends to be leading in the 4th IR. Some of you who follow my Vice Chancellor, Professor Thelezi Marwala, will realize that we now have Spot at UJ. Spot is this robotic dog. When you come to visit me at UJ, you'll be welcomed by Spot at the entrance, and Spot will bring you to my office. So that's some of the things we want to do. But we are trying to do those kind of things to increase the level of research, the level of investigation that takes place. Because if we lag behind that, they are going to bring in the products here, and it's not necessarily the creators who are making the money. It's the middleman who says, well, they need it in Africa, they need this. So how do we make a lot of money out of it. But our role is that of educating, is that of researching, is that of learning. That is our role. If we do that, we're going to remove challenges. Lastly, I want to say, when we look at innovation, a lot of times we think of companies like Google and so on. We don't realize that what these guys were doing, they were essentially just solving a problem. They were just solving a problem. The guys who started Google, they didn't do it. I did my PhD in 1995. 95. And when I did my PhD, if you were looking for information, it was such a hard thing. And when the web came in, you had to log into like a university system and search for things that you are looking for, papers that you are looking for. So the Google guys, when they came up with the search engines, they were just doing it to solve a problem of how to get information done. Now that has turned into something very big, much bigger, making them billionaires and trillionaires. But it was just simply to solve a problem. So we have enough problems that if we just focus on solving those problems, using whatever is there, we'll be surprised what will come out of it. Because things that come out of it, Facebook, when I was in the US, I didn't know about it in South Africa because we never had a Facebook pages for students. But in the US, because students will come from different states, they would create a Facebook, and then a Facebook will have somebody's face and where they come from, just interesting for the students to know that, oh, he comes from Missouri, he comes from Los Angeles, he comes from that. But now the guys were just solving that problem, just putting it technically in terms of technology, and it's become what it is today, where it has created the things. So this innovation comes in because people are trying to solve a problem. And us, we have problems. So let's try to pick up problems that we're interested in really solving them and work on them. We'll be surprised what will come out of it. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Prof. I see the hand from Tremaine Shishapo.
Good morning to all protocols observed, and thank you, Program Director and Spokesperson for the University of Venda, Dr. Takalani Tsaga, for the opportunity to participate in this disability Indaba. I am Tremaine Mtombeni, a final year student living with a disability in the University of Venda in the practice of Bachelor's of Arts in Media Studies, and also a news anchor in the University of Venda's radio station, UNIVEN FM 99.8 megahertz. My question has to do with the statement in the Principal Dr. Ntabeleni's address or presentation. The provision of a bus that caters for students living with disabilities. I stand to be corrected. The bus was handed over to us in late 2019, and on the day of the handover, promises were made to students living with disabilities, and they were never practiced or fulfilled. We were promised that we will utilize the bus on monthly basis to buy groceries, and that never happened. And what we see now is this bus being utilized by general students and not us. My question is, why is it that funding is attained in the name of students living with disabilities, but when property is attained for the said students, they do not benefit from the property? And is the last question is that, is the bus meant for students of the University of Venda in general, or students living with disabilities? Because I believe that's where the confusion might arise from our side or my side. Thank you.
Chair, thank you. I think it's a true and valid discussion that the colleagues must have. But I think I'm going to run away from the meeting now. But I really wish that we need to do that. When we take care of everyone among us ourselves, we do better. And I just want to thank you for the university for giving me this opportunity, though, to speak. I hope to visit one day. And I trust that when I do visit, I will have a lot of friends and people to meet, and we can carry the discussion forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, to mine, I think the DVC teaching and learning, Professor Crawford will be in a better position to respond to your question. I can't see the VC anymore here. Prof. Crawford, are you in a position to respond?
Thank you, Dr. Zaga, and thank you very much for the question, Tremaine. I will not be able to respond adequately now. I will first have to ascertain the facts in the matter. Can I ask that we take the matter offline and try to get Tremaine the answer that she seeks? I will liaise with both facilities and with Dr. Mbuva so that we can get to the facts of the matter and come up with a proper answer to students with disabilities. I hope that's in order, Dr. Zaga.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. I think that will be fine. And I'm sure Tremaine is also persuaded by the response from the DVC teaching and learning.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I understand that it's practically not possible for us to exhaust all the issues that we have. And I think we have done justice to the item on discussions. So let me now take this opportunity and invite the DSC chairperson, Mr. Hanyani Maswanganyi, to come and share with us his remarks. Mr. Maswanganyi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. And I'd also like to acknowledge the engine of the Disability Unit, Dr. Mbuva. She's the heart of the unit, I believe. Now, I have a few issues to either remind or raise, because I believe that some of the issues the university management and also the DSU is aware of. Now, in leadership, because of COVID, we had to lead for 2 consecutive years since elections couldn't take place. Now, during this time, it was not an easy time. Nothing was easy. Things were difficult. And I must say that a lot of issues came up and a lot of problems came up. Some we managed to solve, but then some are still pending. Now, I want to talk about funding. I believe that all students are aware of the fact that in order for them to access funding, they need to meet a certain criteria, or rather pass rate in particular. So I will talk about in NSFAS. NSFAS currently, these students living with disabilities have been on their edge since COVID, simply because there's an issue of the delay of devices, and some couldn't perform well, and they had to be dropped by their sponsor. I'm talking about NSFAS because it's the only sponsor which is funding majority of the students, I believe. Now, as we speak, there are many students who no longer have funding or do not know if they are funded or not. And the processes have been delaying since last year. They appealed last year. And unfortunately, something bad happened at NSFAS. There was a man that we were very close with who was working at NSFAS Disability, Mr. Hirohito. And then he made sure that he fast-tracked the process of appeals, because there were a lot of students who were affected. And then apparently he left the department. and somebody came in. So when somebody comes in, even if the person was bereaved or not, they have to start from scratch. So up until today, those students who appealed last year, those appeals are still pending. They are still pending, and when we try to communicate with NSFAS, myself, my office, and Glenda, we discovered that the person that is now there keeps on postponing meetings, delaying things. There's no response that I can give as a student's leader to the students. They keep on asking, what about our peers? But then I cannot get through to the person. That's the first problem. Now, that problem affects students in many ways, because I was able to, in the beginning of the year, I was able to partner with housing department that they let our student to occupy the rooms just for a little while until we solve that issue, only to find that that issue drags for a very long time. That issue is still not solved. So housing had to kick out most of the students, our housing department. And according to me, to what I know, is that they do not allow anyone to occupy the rooms or their rooms in particular without a funding. So it is another matter, which is a burning matter, of course, which needs attendance as soon as possible. And if possible, maybe the university in collaboration, the university management in collaboration with DSU and also DSC, who could try and find a solution to engage housing in this matter and maybe let the students stay in some way. I don't know how we're going to mobilize funds for them, because I believe that if they're not in this races, it's like we're just abandoning them. We are throwing them away off to the streets where they won't be able to survive. Now, when it comes to academics, I must be honest that the DSU really tries by all means to support students. In terms of devices, the door has always been opened that such that they loan students devices to support them academically. And there are also people in the unit whom assist in case a student is facing difficulties. But we find that we have challenges because, sometimes students do not come forward quickly. They come when it's late, and we cannot blame them. We do not play the blaming game, but then we just need to come in and assist where we can. So we also need to stretch a hand in academic support in that manner. Now, early this year, I wrote to Mr. Lugudu, because student affairs had hindered SRC members to take part in the registration. Now, in that case, many students, general students, were able to register and all that. But when it comes to individuals living with disabilities, it remained as a challenge because, our job, I've done it before. Like deploy one person at the gate, deploy one at ICT, deploy one at new admin, and I would come in between, maybe also into the DSU, because there's a long process for a student living with disability to get registered. And you cannot leave someone who is disabled standing in a very long queue. So it was our duty to make sure that we identify these people from the queues, we take them, we help them throughout the process until they get accommodated. That was our duty. So we appealed, and then to all good, then the conversation ended up going nowhere because we didn't form part of the registration process, of which affected many students, because as we speak, I think the unit this year managed to register plus or minus 10 students, 10, 11 students, new students for that matter, of which I believe is a very small number. And I still strongly believe that it is because of the fact that the student leadership of individuals living with disabilities didn't form part of registration. So going forward, I would like to, I do not know if it's the right platform, but then I do believe that as the University of Venda, we do promote diversity, and we also want our people to form part of all processes that take place, meaning that in departments, students living with disabilities or employees living with disabilities should be in great number. The reason for that, there's a very strong reason for the university to employ more people living with disabilities. Number one, it came to my attention and realization that many people do not understand the need to pay attention to someone who is disabled or living with a disability. And still, many people do not understand some disabilities. And you find that at the end of the day, that person doesn't get proper assistance. Because, we've got many disabilities that I believe that even now, there might be people who are working in admin now who do not understand and who do not know. So if I am, for example, I am to employ a graduate, myself, let's say, I'm just giving an example. I am to employ a disabled graduate who was in this same university to work in a certain department, having met the requirements, of course. If I am to employ that person, I will know very well that if ever students need assistance in a certain department, there's that one person who represent people living with disabilities. They will get, if ever the other staff do not understand the needs of the person, it will be easy for the other one to assist because they share some common grounds, if I can put it in that way. So I'm saying that it would be nicer for the university to promote diversity in that angle of recruiting disabled graduates to come and form part of the staff in various departments. Now, I want to finish, touch the issue of the devices that were given to students. There was a first batch where Dr. Ntambeleni touched that part. Of the 3 students were given assistive devices, and as far as assistive devices. And yesterday, we also managed to give them, I think it was 66. And then the problem comes in when it's time to procure. The process to procure the devices, the process is usually a tough one. We take time to get these devices. Usually, I cannot say, let me talk about the recent one that we received. This process might have started last year. And as we speak, we are still talking about many students who got kicked out by their sponsors. Their sponsors kicked them off because they were not excelling. DSU, and I believe DSU it is a fact actually, has a history in the university of producing quality graduates, of having students who pass very well. Now, during the past year and this year, if we can take a look and observe closely, we'll see very well that things have changed. They've drastically changed. And it is because the support was not there. The up and downs that have to happen in order to procure devices, I believe that they are not necessary. We need to find ways to make sure that the process is a smooth one and a very quick one, because we are not just delaying the purchase, but we are also delaying the future, or rather the progress of students living with disabilities. So, colleagues, I won't prolong. I will end there because that is what I wanted to touch. Thank you very much, Program Director, for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Maswangani, for the remarks. I'm sure relevant colleagues have taken note of your comments, particularly the head of our disability unit, Dr. Mbuva, and hopefully the issues that you have raised will receive the necessary attention. So, colleagues, I now have a pleasure to request our DVC Teaching and Learning, Professor Jan Crawford, to give us a vote of thanks. Professor Crawford, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zaga. And I would like to start with you as our program director. Once again, thank you so much for always being available to facilitate these events that we have on campus. And thank you for doing so professionally from the side of yourself and your directorate. Mr. Azwitamisi Gadisi, thank you for welcoming all of us to this event. And then I think my biggest thanks goes to Dr. Chipiwa Mbuva as the HOD of the Disability Unit. Dr. Mbuva, thank you for arranging and hosting this event. I think there are exciting times ahead for the Disability Unit with the refurbishment of the building that is currently underway. And I think that under your leadership and with the necessary support from all the divisions, we can turn our DSU into another flagship that the University of Venda can really be proud of. Our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ntambeleni, thank you very much for gracing this occasion in spite of your very, very hectic schedule. Thank you very much for reminding us that we will be judged for both our humanity as well as our commitment to our vision of being a student-centered institution by the way in which we treat the most vulnerable amongst our students. And thank you very much for your leadership as well in this regard. In absentia, Professor Mashal, Professor Daniel Mashal, thank you very much for your very, very interesting and thought-provoking presentation. It's good news to know that there's collaboration between UJ and UNIVEN in the field of 4IR, and we really look forward to welcoming you in person, because virtual reality is what we're now getting used to, but there's no replacement for the real reality of meeting people face to face, and we're looking forward to that. Mr. Maswangani, thanks for raising all the issues that you have raised. I've certainly taken note. Many of them are within the sphere of authority of student affairs and the registrar's division, but we will transmit your concerns. Thank you very much for your leadership amongst the students with disabilities. Please keep reminding yourself and all of them that you are never defined by any disability, that you are simply differently abled, and that we have an obligation to assist you to be empowered so that you can access all the opportunities that are available for all our students. And thank you very much to all the colleagues. It was a very gratifying number of staff and visitors who attended this event. I saw almost 60. Thank you very much, colleagues. And over to you, Dr. Zaga.
Thank you so much, Professor Crawford, our DVC Teaching and Learning. And colleagues, once again, thank you so much for your participation. This brings us to the end of our program. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.